Hello and welcome back to the FinalWhistle.ie for the Rugby Show. And as always, we have an absolutely stacked show coming up for you. We have Lansdowne duo Peter, Hastie and Corey Reid joining us, and we will also have reaction from our reporter Adam McKendry on the Ulster Schools Senior Cup. But first, I'm joined by Ireland, Leinster and Railway Union star Nikki Caughey. Nikki, thanks so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much for having me.
And I suppose, where else is there to start? AIL Cup and League champions. Can you try sum up that campaign?
Um, it was a bit of a dream actually for me. I'd say, playing senior rugby since I was 18. I've been playing rugby since I was 5, and it's probably my biggest achievement personally. It was a personal goal 10 years ago. I wanted to win AIL League, AIL Cup, and to actually do them both. Now, I wasn't playing the final in the AIL Cup, but to actually be part of both of them is just massive, and it's massive for the club. And yeah, like I wasn't part of it in 2019. I was out injured, but up until that point, that was probably my proudest moment in sport as well. But to actually play in the final and win the final in the style that we did, and how close it was, and yeah, just gives me goosebumps thinking about it, because I just very very proud to have that, and it's great for the club as well.
And rightly so. And if I can kind of jot your mind back to the beginning of the season, as a squad collectively, what were your goals going into the start of the campaign?
Um, we're a very performance based kind of team. Like if you like, we kind of try and take a bit of emotion out of it. I know a lot of teams can run off emotion and being proud and pride for the jersey and stuff. We are very very performance based, and like with a really good coaching staff that set us up to give the best performance, where we don't actually have to think about anything outside of that. Um, so we set our goals pretty high at the start of the season. We weren't shy. We wanted to retain the AIL league, because obviously pre-COVID we were the holders of it. It didn't get finished the year COVID hit. We wanted to retain that. We wanted to win the cup again. It had been a couple of years since we've won the cup. We also aimed high with our twos. We wanted to win our twos league, and we wanted to win the cup as well. 3 out of 4 we've done. We're still waiting on the twos cup. So we weren't shy in our club goals, but it was more just, we set our goals and then we kind of set it aside, and it was like, right, what do we have to do that? And yeah, and like it was almost a bit mechanical, and like, right, this is what the training's going to be. This is what you sign up for. If you're not part of it, if you're not up for it, you don't have to be there. But everybody that was in that room that heard the goals and stuff wanted to be a part of it, and we were all ready to play, especially after a year of COVID, not being around people, not playing rugby. Everybody was just so excited to get back. So, and obviously we had a dream season, as you can imagine,
And as you were saying there, a very competitive league with the likes of UL Bohemian, Blackrock, Old Belvedere. And is there any side that really stands out to you that you faced this year that really gave you some great big battles?
Um, I'd be silly not to mention the likes of UL Bows. I was actually chatting to Briggsy earlier in the week. We were talking about when the turning point for Railway was actually whenever we did start to compete with Bows, and we did start to maybe beat them in the odd game, and we realised that we could really aim high in the AIL Cup, and aim beyond the middle of the table. They're obviously massive competitors. I love playing against them because it's just such a battle, like physical. I know the last scoreline probably didn't do. They were missing a lot of players. We were missing a lot of players, but like, it's always so competitive. And we probably have to thank them for a little bit of our success, because the last couple of years leading up to this year was like, let's beat Bows this year, let's beat Bows this year. And then this year, um, Rock just had a turning point. We've always been competitive with Rock over the last couple of years. This year, I think they really took a step up in their coaching staff, their management, and how they went about things on the pitch. And they were our first loss of the season. But I mean, like, to have that kind of competition where you're coming in and it is a 50-50 whether you're going to win a game, like, that's so exciting to have as a player. Um, and yeah, I'd say Rock kind of not surprised us, because they've always had a good squad, but we really enjoyed playing them this season, even if it did come with a loss or two against them.
And then with the AIL, it's great to have such a competitive division. And I think this year when they split the top four and then made that conference section for the bottom sides, how important do you think that was?
Really important for both sides of the table. So like before Christmas for us, I think possibly we've went through 45 players on our AIL team this season, which is just incredible. Like, and it stands to our seconds as well. Like they've been able to come up and down where possible, where they were allowed to. And pre Christmas, it was really important for us to rotate the squad and get those two players playing at a higher level than what their league is, to allow them personally to kick on and experience like a higher level of playing, and realize like what they're training for and stuff, you know. And then so like yeah, so pre Christmas was good for rotation, but then after Christmas to get those competitive games week in week out, it's just it changes everything, you know. You're not, there's no weeks off in that term. Like you come off a really heavy hard game and you know you've got a heavy hard game the week after, and like it kind of builds your mentality. Then you're not kind of going against the squad and saying, you know, like, oh, even though you know it's going to be a tough game, you know you'll probably get the win. Like every week was every week was a toss up, you know, and it kind of forces you as a player to get better, to improve, to think about tactics, to think about like small skills outside of like team play that can possibly edge you ahead of another team. So it really opened up for us a bit of game management actually. And when you lose players, this is what you do to win. When you gain players, you can change your tactics and stuff, you know. And then obviously leading into a Six Nations to have four teams, and actually even the lower end, sorry, of that conference, they're still playing really competitive rugby against people that are maybe more equally matched, but you've still got really good games, skillful games in there. And yeah, and it's the exact same thing for them then and, as well. But like to lead into Six Nations now, where the four top teams have had really competitive games for 6-7 weeks running, is going to be invaluable to them. Hopefully going into the Six Nations, you know.
And then, as someone who is so heavily involved in Irish rugby like you are, do you see firsthand the growth and maybe women's rugby getting the recognition it deserves? Obviously, with Nikki Caughey showing that league final and the crowds of people up there, do you see a difference kind of in the support for it?
Absolutely. It's funny because like as a player, like you love the whole buzz about it. Like we could have been playing out in a field in the middle of nowhere. The players themselves would have had the exact same buzz about it, and you kind of forget a little bit about the media build up and the fact it's on TV. But then whenever you actually look back and be like, we were playing live on the national channel, you know, it's amazing. And like the amount of people that I've had even saying to me after, oh, I was watching you on TG Car, like that you just wouldn't think would be interested in women's rugby, and they went, oh, like, it was a really good game, or it was quick, or it was intense, you know. And like they're surprised by it as well. That like might just force them to go down to the local club and or invest in women's rugby a little bit more, you know. So yeah, like the all the media build up and stuff, and like Six Nations being in its own window just gives it a chance to reach those audiences that wouldn't necessarily follow women's rugby, but they might flick on a channel because the men's rugby isn't on, and they're just rugby fans and watch it and actually just appreciate it for what it is and appreciate how skillful or yeah, how skillful it is. Like they might be surprised by it, and then you gain, and then women's rugby gains an extra follower, you know, and that just helps build the success for it, I suppose.
100%, and that really leads into my next question about the upcoming Six Nations and how excited are you for that, and what are your goals kind of as a team going into it?
Yeah, it's funny. I haven't been involved, I'd say, since 2018 when I was injured and stuff. So like, and I'd put I kind of put like over COVID. Obviously, everybody's going through their own mental struggles and stuff, and I kind of just, you know, I hadn't played in a couple of years. I'd put on a bit of weight. I was going like, am I able to still play at an international level, or and I'd kind of reserved myself to just playing club, and I was very happy to do so and interpro. So when I got the call to go in, like it was a shock first and foremost, but I actually realized how much I loved it and how much I missed it. Sometimes you can take it for granted when you are in and around it all the time. And then we came together as a squad. It's obviously new management. There's a lot of new younger players, exciting players in there as well. We've got a mix of the sevens in there as well. And to be honest, it's a new start, I think, for Irish women's rugby. You know, we're the only team in the Six Nations that maybe haven't qualified for the World Cup. So we're playing for like every other team's warming up for the World Cup. We're playing like just kind of to start something new and start something exciting and try and get women's rugby Irish women's rugby back on the right track. And we've sat down as a team and we've set out goals and we've set out standards. We're trying to create our own culture, which is coming along really well. Like I can't even explain the positive vibes that are going on in camp, and you know, there's no toxicness, or you know, it's just a really good feeling to be back in the mix and stuff. And so I suppose as a team, again, we just want to go out and get performance, and we want to enjoy playing again. You know, it was coming off a successful November series, obviously with the disappointment of Italy. I think people just want to turn a corner and start a new page and start it well, you know. And if we can compete with the likes of France and England and beat the teams that are maybe a bit lower down on it as well, like, you know, it's all to play for. We've nothing to lose by it. We're very hopeful and very positive and very excited actually for what's to come.
Yeah, and you mentioned there that the call up maybe shocked you a bit, but I think I speak for anyone who's maybe followed women's rugby over the past season at Railway, and I think your form definitely warrants a place in that Irish squad. And I think with Niamh Briggs coming into the coaching team, what is she going to add, and is everyone really excited about her getting very hands-on, obviously alongside Greg?
Yeah, massively actually. I played with Briggs as a player, as like a really young, fresh, like probably a bit naive player I was, and she maybe had to try and manage me a little bit, but like to have a player, an ex-player coach of her experience and her knowledge as well, like, is just invaluable, you know. In an international camp, I think it's probably the first time that we've had a female coach of her expertise in there, and like somebody that, like me, I knew her as a person and a player before going into camp. It's really comfortable for me to approach her and ask her questions or bounce an idea off her and get her feedback, and I respect her feedback, you know. Like, I respect all the coaches' feedback, but if you know somebody personally and as a player haven't played with and against them, you know, like, and for the younger players even coming through, just getting to experience that as well, like it's just going to add so much, you know.
Yeah, it definitely will. And if I was to ask you maybe of a proudest moment of your career so far, what comes to mind for you?
I'll take out the AIL league win this season. Of all, I was actually only speaking to JC, it's the railway coach there, about this couple of months ago, and like, I've done Sevens World Cup, World Series, Six Nations. The proudest moment of my career was actually, I was running water in the 2019 AIL League final, and it was Railway's first win, and it was a whole club experience. I've never actually watched a game and just not being part of it, not, how to explain it, sorry. Having
No,
not played in the game felt like part of it, if that makes sense. And
yeah, absolutely.
it makes me emotional thinking about it, but like, that's probably my proudest moment is the first year that Railway won the AIL, for sure.
And I think that really shows the morale in that Railway squad and the togetherness, and you do get kind of family vibes off each other, like you nearly all go out onto the pitch and die for each other. And I think finally, if I was to maybe do a bit of a quick fire question with you about your Railway teammates, your Leinster, your Irish teammates, of anyone that you've ever played with, if I was to ask you the best passer of the ball that you've ever played with, who would you say to me?
The best passer has to be Larissa Muldoon.
Okay,
sure.
And if I asked you best kicker?
Kicker, probably actually, I'll think outside of the box here. Catherine Dean from Belleville, she's the 9, and some of her box kicks, they're just so smart, and she plays the ball perfectly to just bounce out or stay in. Probably one of the best kickers.
Very good. Then if I went with tackler?
I'm going to be biased here. She's my teammate, my partner, but probably Deirdre Roberts. She played for Railway this year, and I've only been on the receiving end of one tackle, thankfully, and it was not nice. I may or may not have stepped out for a few minutes, but I've seen her hits, and she has to be the best tackler, I think, in the league at the minute.
Very good. And then if I was to ask you, maybe a player with a very high IQ in rugby terms, always a step ahead of play and thinking outside the box.
Oh, a player specifically. There's so many. Like, I have rugby conversations. Actually, a player that I used to play with, Shirley Corcoran, and she retired actually at the 2019 AIL final. But she's probably one of the smartest players, smartest rugby thinkers. She now actually does our huddle reviews and our match coding and stuff, because she's just so in tune with. Like she always said, like, oh, I'm not the fastest or I'm not the strongest, but she knows rugby inside out, and I could have great rugby chats with her as well.
Very good. And then last of all, if I was to ask you a best leader that you played with, someone that always got everyone rallied up and ready for the game, who would you say to me?
Niamh Byrne, 100%. It's she's so balanced. Like people who need a big slap in the back and a big rare to go react off her, even though she's quite calm. She knows how to speak to each player individually. She'll know not to come up and slap me in the back, but to come up and just have like a tactical talk, or another player she'll know to go up and try and rile them up. And like, she leads by example. She's a fantastic player, fantastic person, and people just want to play for her and with her. And yeah, 100% Niamh Byrne.
Nikki, it's been absolutely great having you on the show, and all the best for the Six Nations campaign ahead.
That's lovely. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Brilliant. All the best now.
Thanks. Bye.
And elsewhere in the Women's AIL, Blackrock College were crowned plate champions after a 24-12 victory over Cook. And then moving on to the Leinster Schools Senior Cup action, Gonzaga College booked their place in the final of the Cup with a 34-21 victory over St. Mary's. Tries from Jody Brown, Hugo McLaughlin, Paul Wilson and Stephen McMahon sealed the win for Gonzaga. They will face the winner of Blackrock College or Newbridge College tomorrow. And we have match reaction from coaches Kieran Maloney and Gareth Pelly now.
Gareth, congratulations into the final now. How can you sum up that game?
Well, we played very well in parts of the first half. We did very well to recover from an early score, which kind of rocked us back on our heels. I thought when we got into position 27, we made some fantastic line breaks. We probably threw a couple of unnecessary offloads. Got a little bit loose, but we managed to regain our composure. So fairness to Mary's, they really put it in. I think the penalty try was a massive turning point in our favour. A great game because of Mary's.
Definitely, and you were leading at half-time. What was the message to the lads ahead of that second half?
Well, we were very pleased with many aspects of our play, but I suppose our first up tackling and trying to stick and hit more and maybe get our line speed up, that was the main message.
And obviously a very big St. Mary's side, some big ball carriers. How did you really prepare for that during the week?
Well, every week we're really playing guys that are bigger than us. That's Gonzaga, don't breed the biggest of men. So you just, go low, chop, pick the stick.
And now into the final as well. How excited are you ahead of that, and do you really think you can go all the way?
We absolutely feel we can go all the way. We're in it to win it. No disrespect to Blackrock. We understand their history and their tradition in this competition, but we really, really believe in ourselves. But I suppose today we're going to enjoy this evening and back to work tomorrow.
Kieran, commiserations. How can you sum up that game of rugby?
I think I was just chatting to Martin Fenner there, and he said they took their opportunities, and I think that's how you could sum it up. A number of times we got in behind them and just weren't able to execute and weren't able to get through multi-phase. But look, better team today won. Unfortunately, that wasn't us today. But by and large, we've been very happy with our season. I know our lads won't see that now, but that's pretty much the way it's gone.
And how can you sum up the season, really? Some really big wins in the past couple of rounds. Are you very proud of your side?
Yeah, I mean, we've battled hard. We went down against Kilkenny, we went down against CUS, and we're able to battle back. Today was just against a team like Gonzaga, who won the league, who met Michaels a few weeks ago. You're just not going to get the same opportunities to get back into a game. So unfortunately our lads were on the other end of that today.
Definitely, and then out of the sides that are left in the competition, who would you be backing maybe to go all the way?
I think that obviously Rock are the favourites. I think they'll get a big game tomorrow against Newbridge. But if Gonzaga again take their opportunities and are probably a little bit more clinical than they were against us, you would hope that they could at least challenge and possibly beat Blackrock or Newbridge. So Blackrock are probably favourites, but those two have a good opportunity.
Methodist College were crowned Ulster Schools Senior Cup champions after 20 points to 17 victory over Campbell College on St Patrick's Day. In a moment, I'll be joined by our reporter Adam McKendry, but first, here's reaction from Peter O'Hagan.
Peter, Schools Cup winner, how does that feel?
It feels great. It's great for just a huge performance from the team all around, and we've been playing well all season, and we've finally been rewarded for it. It's lovely.
Massive second half performance there. You guys go 10 points down at the start of the second half. What were you saying to the guys under the posts just to get them back in and ready to go?
Good. We just need to get back to how we started, because we started strong. They didn't want any of it, and then they started to creep into it. Then at half time, it was a good place to be able to go. We were all over them. Let's get back to where we were, and couldn't get out of half for the second half.
Yeah, you spent so long down there. You really did dominate. Whenever you tied it up, did you feel like it was yours to win there?
Yeah, I think we had the momentum, definitely.
And then Ben Mcfarland coming up with that massive kick at the end.
He does it all the time. He does it all the time. He's class.
He did it in the semi-final.
Did it in the semi-final.
Outstanding.
Did it in the quarter-final as well. Baller.
You were confident he was always going to land that last one?
Yeah.
Whenever you lifted that trophy, did it live up to all the expectations you had in your head?
Definitely.
And being able to celebrate it in front of all your fans as well.
Yeah, the fans support was excellent today. It was just great. All around excellent day. Enjoyed it a lot. The whole team's enjoyed it a lot. We're going to enjoy it a bit more.
How long do you think you're going to hold on to the trophy for? Do you think you're going to be the one to try and keep it for a week and then pass it around the other guys?
Who knows? We'll see. We'll hear about that tomorrow morning. Bigger things ahead.
I mean, you talked before the game began about the expectation at Methody and sort of the standard that you guys have to live up to, but now you guys are going to go down in history as another Methody team to win it. You must be so proud.
It's an honour for the team. It's great. Absolutely great.
Perfect.
I'm now joined by Lansdowne duo Corey Reid and Peter Hastie. Lads, thanks a million for joining me.
Thanks very much.
And I think we may as well just get straight into it. And Corey, sitting in second place in Division 1A, are you happy with how the season has gone so far?
Yeah, absolutely. Jesus, we've been flying it, in fairness. So obviously second at the moment, and obviously coming off the Bateman Cup final wins. Been a great season so far, so hopefully more to come.
Yeah, and Peter, I suppose if I can jot your memory back to the start of the season, what were your goals kind of collectively? What did you sit down and say, this is what we want to do, or what were the goals really?
I think at the start of the season anyway, I mean, of course, you're going to try win as much as you can. I think the Leinster League or the Cup was the first one, and I suppose then followed by the Bateman. But I suppose you kind of at the start of the season, you set out to win as much as possible. Thankfully, at the moment, we're not doing too bad. Of course, we haven't had a great run there recently, but hopefully now we can finish strong and see what happens.
And then, obviously, maybe form hasn't gone your way in recent weeks with 2 losses on the bounce against Young Munster and Clontarf. And Corey, how do you kind of, as a team, just get back to basics? And what's the message from the coaching staff ahead of this week's game?
Yeah, I suppose we took a week off there and just had a real think of what we want to achieve, I suppose. So we have to get back into things now last week, and obviously getting into things this week. So we're just trying to bring things back to basics and hopefully just go back to the way we were, because obviously we've knocked off a wee bit, and we just need to kick on again.
Definitely, yeah. And Peter, I kind of want to talk to you a bit about the training that you do. And do you tend to focus training sessions maybe around the opposition you're playing at the weekend, or do you really just stick to your own game?
A lot of it really is kind of around our own kind of game. I know we do a lot of kind of unit work on both, so I suppose more so on Thursday, but we do a bit now on Tuesday as well. But a lot of it is kind of based around us and how we can kind of improve ourselves, because I know if we can get ourselves going, we're not too bad. It's just really kind of getting ourselves in the right frame of mind, really, and I think that's a lot of it.
Yeah. Definitely. And then kind of for the both of you, What is kind of a week in training with an AIL team like, and how many days training do you do, and is there a lot of gym work, or is it mainly pitch kind of at this stage of the season? We'll start with you, Corey.
Yeah, well, we do a speed session and gym session on a Monday with our S&C coach Dan, so that's a Monday, and then on a Tuesday we do a collective training session all together. So that's that'll be more intense. So yeah, it's not too bad. And then on a
Adam,
Wednesday,
welcome back to the show. Thank you very much for joining us again.
Thanks for having me again, Luke.
Just hold on there. We're having a few technical issues, but I think we're back good. Corey, didn't mean to interrupt you there. I'll let you get back into it.
But yeah, so and then on a Tuesday we've a collective session with all the lads. So that'll be our heavy session, be about an hour and a half, and be more full on contact, whatnot. And then usually Wednesday is a gym session, do it in your own time, and then Thursday is collective again, and be more just going through drills of what we want to achieve on the weekend and doing back moves and doing moves together. Hastie be running the show a wee bit, so I would.
And then kind of another question for the two of you. How long are you both playing with Lansdowne, and what teams were you playing with previously? Peter, I'll start with you.
So I would have kind of gone the, I suppose, less traditional route. I'm a club man, so I would have played in Wicklow until under 18s. And then I went to Lansdowne and I did my 20s there. So I did both years with Hastie, and then after that I actually spent a season in Naas. And then from there came back to Lansdowne, and I've been there since. So I suppose it was kind of strange leaving, then coming back. But no, it was good. Now I think going away, especially to Naas, kind of helped me to play a bit more 1B, play senior rugby a bit more, and then to come back to Lansdowne, I felt like I was a bit more ready, a bit more kind of well prepared to do so.
Yeah, and did you feel kind of a bit of a jump from, let's say, maybe just playing with Wicklow and then going up to playing with a club like Lansdowne, or did it take you a while to adapt?
Yeah, it's a big step. I mean, mentally, you're kind of thinking to yourself, right, you're kind of joining with a lot of the lads, schools lads, all the lads kind of from all over. I mean, it's a big club. It's known for being good. So I suppose there is a bit of a hesitation to even go there in the first place. You kind of question if you're good enough to go and stuff like that. But I think once you make the jump and once you go for it, you kind of realise it was kind of worth it, and it worked out for the better anyway.
It definitely has. And then Corey, yourself, where did you start off, and when did you first arrive at Lansdowne?
Yeah, I actually only started in Lansdowne this year, but I'm from Athlone, so I started my club rugby in Buccaneers in Athlone. So I played 3 years senior there. My first year was actually 1A, but we got relegated that year, so wasn't the best of times. But no, it's definitely, when I joined Lansdowne this year, it's been unreal. Like, you know, just the standard of rugby, everyone there is top quality. So yeah, it's really good.
And I suppose it's very competitive sides, and is there real competition for places, and how important is it having a big squad in the AIL?
Oh yeah, I think there's competition everywhere, isn't there, Hastie?
Wow, massive, yeah.
No one's safe. Like, so, like if you're injured or out 1 week, someone steps in, you know, and you know they won't be filling the gap, like, and then sure, it's all to pay for them the week after.
They're doing very well, and then before you know it, you're in a bit of a scrap to get back in as well, and then it's just. But it makes training quite interesting as well, because everyone's pushing. Everyone kind of wants to do the same thing. They all want to play the first, you know, and I think that's what kind of is driving us a good bit as well. And there's a huge amount of competition around the squad this year.
Yeah, and it's definitely needed, and it really does show in the top clubs that there is real strength and depth. And I suppose if I can kind of bring your memory around to sides that you faced this year, Peter, I'll start with you, of sides that have really impressed you, that may be very good tactically, or a very strong side that you perhaps struggled with.
Oh, well, I think, to be honest, Tarf was probably the big one, isn't it? Which is the size, they have a big pack. And once they get that going, geez, they're very, very hard to stop. So to be fair, I'd say Tarf for myself anyway, they were pretty decent.
Yeah, and then yourself, Corey?
Yeah, Tarf obviously, but then you have, I think Trinity were very good when we played them at home as well. They kind of caught us off guard a small bit. They were played at unreal pace, and obviously they're a big Trinity side as well, so pace and size, I think they played unreal rugby that day as well. So
definitely, and obviously they're a side with a lot of skill, but you have managed to get the better of them on a couple of occasions this year. And is there maybe a bit of more of a buzz when you do beat one of your rivals like that as well? Peter, I'll go to you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, of course, I think there is a nice. It's nice. It's rewarding, I suppose. brings the lads together that bit more. And I suppose even playing a local kind of game like that, it does mean that bit more. I mean, you play it on a Friday night, everything, the occasion, everything's a little bit different. It's not your normal kind of AIL game, I suppose. So to win one as well, of course, it's nice to lose. It's not so nice either. But no, it's something different.
And then Corey, kind of looking forward to the rest of the season. I think there is just the 3 games left in the AIL, and is cementing that top 4 place really a must for you as a squad?
No, absolutely, yeah. We're trying to get home semi-final. Home semi-final is obviously huge, so top 2 is where we're probably aiming for. As you know, just looking throughout the last few games that have gone on in semi-finals, usually the home side will usually come out on the better. So yeah, that's definitely our aim this year. Next 3 games.
And Peter, then I think with a lot of AIL games being available to stream and a lot more people maybe tuning in, do you see the AIL growing and it's really positive for Irish rugby, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's definitely growing. I know Lansdowne in particular, we have a pretty good stream. We're quite fortunate to have the cameras there and stuff, but I suppose it'd be nice to see even more games to be streamed, to kind of get more exposure around as well. And I think the likes of some of the academy players coming back, like obviously we've got the likes of Dooley coming back, Foley coming back, Greg, Peter Sullivan, there's a low Temmie as well. Like there's a lot of players to come back, and I suppose it kind of lifts the standard that little bit more as well. So I suppose to get a bit more exposure and stuff like that, I mean, it'd be great. It'd be great, really.
And like you were saying there, obviously a lot of video cameras and stuff. And does that help you as a team? Do you do much analysis on your games and maybe even individual points to improve and stuff as well?
Yeah, definitely. Boiler loves huddle. Loves huddle. He's actually never off it. He was actually just ringing me there as well, so he's probably watching. But yeah, Mark Boyle loves huddle, so he does.
Did you call him Paul Boyle there? Did you?
No, I said Mark. That's
sure,
you trying to get a sly one in there. But no, I think with the amount of videos and stuff like that, of course, like it's nice to be able to watch kind of games back and stuff like that. There's always a review every Thursday and stuff before we go out of the pitch. So
yeah, and then I think finally, just to finish on a bit of a quick fire round that we did it with Nikki Caughey earlier. So I'm going to go give you a couple of areas. I'll start off with you then, Corey. If I asked you, of all time, of everyone you've played with, who's the best passer of the ball?
Just the one.
I'll let you give me 2. Just because you played for a couple of sides.
I give Hastie 1.
Jeez, not bad.
And Jack Matthews.
Very good. And then Peter, if I go to you.
Yeah, James Kenny's one as well. I suppose Jack Matthews is good as well. James Kenny. Cormac Foley as well. Jeez.
Yeah, the 3 nines, in fairness.
Foley's got a good pass.
And then Corey will lead you into best kicker there. And
oh Jesus! I give it to one of the Athlone lads, Luke Delaney.
And Peter, then yourself, maybe another good out half you played with.
Oh jeez, let me think here now for a sec. Tector's good. Tector's actually got a very good boot. Very, very good boot.
And then I'll go back to you, Corey. Then best tackler.
Jack O'Sullivan.
And then yourself, Peter.
Luke Thompson.
And then I'll go back to you again, Peter. I'll mix it up a bit. Work rate. Is there someone that's kind of covered every blade of grass on the pitch?
Clive Ross.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
He's everywhere.
You both go with him then?
Yeah.
And then one that sometimes catches a couple of people out, Corey. Is there a player that you played with that maybe always sees a step ahead or has a real rugby IQ on him that is just different to a lot of the other players?
Yeah, I suppose there's a few. I suppose Eamon Mills is probably up there, but he's in the club at the moment. He's just very knowledgeable, knows everything about the game, and he's a real leader on the pitch.
And then yourself, Peter?
I'd say Barry Goulding. Would have played with him at 20s and then also a little bit for the first as well. But his brain for rugby is incredibly impressive.
And then finally in this quick fire round, best leader that you played with, Peter?
Jeez. I'll have to Jack O'Sullivan, of course. He's a great man, to be fair. He's a good leader all around. But I suppose obviously Jack Dawn as well. Obviously he didn't get too much of the season, unfortunately, with COVID and stuff, but he was quite good as well.
Yeah, I'll go with the 2 of them as well. I'll go with the 2 Jacks.
Okay.
Yeah. I was going to say Jack Dawn as well.
And I think that's everything anyway, boys. So thanks so much for joining me.
Lovely.
And we'll have to get
bother
John
at all.
maybe another stage at the end of the season. Hopefully it's a very
Yeah,
successful
hopefully
season
so.
for Lansdowne.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Cheers. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much.
Thank you
lads.
very much. All right. Bye-bye.
Adam, welcome back to the show. Thank you very much for joining us again.
Thanks for having me again, Luke. It's always fun being on.
And I suppose we have to start from that game on Paddy's Day where Methodist College were crowned Ulster Senior Cup champions. Tell me a bit about that game.
Unbelievable game. I think before we went into the game, we sort of knew it was going to be a close one. They were two very evenly matched teams, and fortunately the game lived up to the expectation because we were sitting there, going into the second half. Campbell scored just after the second half, and you think they're going to run away with it here. And then Methody just slowly kept plugging away. They had one great chance in the corner that they didn't score from, and you thought maybe that's their chance gone, but they just kept coming back, and eventually they get the tries to tie it up. But that kick at the end, which I'm sure we're going to talk about, from Ben Mcfarland, to be able to cope with the pressure of a big game like that and to convert a kick to win the Schools Cup, essentially, that's just incredible from a kid who's not even 18 yet.
Absolutely. And we spoke a bit about the battle between the two out halves last week with Peter Caves and Ben Mcfarland. And what was that like, kind of watching the game in live time?
Well, I think one of the things that really impressed me was the standard of the kicking on both teams, because we all know that in schools rugby, if you've got a good kicker, it can go a long way. And I think we spoke about this whenever I was on the show last week. Mcfarland being able to kick all those points against RBAI in the semi-final was what really actually won them the game, because it just kept the scoreboard ticking over and it just pushed them that little bit further out. And it just really demoralized RBAI, and Methody then pulled away. And in the final, we saw two teams who had very good kicking games, and they kind of cancelled each other out, which is why they kept things so close. Knowing that you couldn't give away penalties in the red zone was a real deterrent for both sides. And you can't take anything away from Campbell's kicking performance because they were very good. It was just Mcfarland was given that one chance. And whenever he got it on the 10-meter line, I remember saying to one of the guys who was sitting beside me, was he actually going to go for it? 10 on the 10-meter line is a massive kick in schools terms. But he lamped this thing and it had a good bit to spare. Like, he probably could have kicked it from the halfway line and it still would have crept over the crossbar. So it was a good battle between the two. I thought the better battle was sort of between the packs. I really enjoyed because you could see that Campbell really did target the maul, which was somewhere where Methody struggled in their semi-final. RBAI got a lot of purchase from it, and Campbell did target it, and they got one of their scores directly off the back of one of the mauls early in the second half. And I thought Methody stood up better than what they did in the semi-final, and that probably was just what won it for them in the end, because I think if Campbell had managed to get more of a stronghold on the game, or a stranglehold in the game through the pack, then I think Methody might have thought this was another of those games that they had in the last four. But instead, they stood up and they managed to wrestle it back in their favour, and especially in that second half, they just took over.
Definitely, and obviously, like you're saying, Methodist coming from behind, it did show a real resilient performance to do that. And obviously, with the game being at the Kingspan Stadium, what was that like with the atmosphere, and was there a good crowd there to support the two teams?
We've really missed the Schools Cup final, and I think we were saying this last week as well. It was the one thing that hadn't really come back from an Ulster perspective. You'd had Ulster senior games during parts of lockdown in the ERC or the Pro 14 as it was then, and the Champions Cup, but we hadn't had the Schools Cup because it got called off for another year. So having it back and just that novelty factor of being back on St. Patrick's Day at Kingspan Stadium for the final was just, it was just one of those things where you walked into the stadium and you just had a smile on your face because you knew it was going to be a good day. It's always one of the dates that you circle in your calendar every year, and you look forward to seeing the best of Ulster Schools players. You get to see some of the guys who are vying for academy contracts next year, and the crowd really responded. The Methody have been there and done that. They've got kids who have probably been to 3 or 4 finals before, but just because they have such a good team, and Campbell have started to get to that point as well where they have quite a lot of experience being in finals. So the two were going back and forth, and it was fantastic just to see how the changes in momentum changed how the atmosphere went. Campbell obviously had that excitement whenever they were up, but Methody, to their credit, as they kept going back and Methody were attacking towards their fans in the second half, you could just feel them getting more and more into the game. And then once they tied it, it was absolute bedlam down that end. And then, of course, they win it, and you can just imagine the scenes. So great crowd there. I think they said that they just had under 9,000 at the game, which is fantastic for the final. And look, it's just great to see Schools Cup final back at Kingspan Stadium again.
And then I suppose if I was to, as someone who has a real knowledge on schools rugby in Ulster, do you see the level maybe just continuing to grow, and the skill set of the players kind of increasing year on year?
Well, look, it's no secret that Leinster are kind of the leaders whenever it comes to schools rugby and the money that's pumped into those schools and the dedication that goes into the senior cup down there in terms of how much the players put into it, how much the coaches put into it. Ulster isn't at that level yet, but there is a real desire to raise the Ulster schools game to that level. And you see some schools, schools that maybe wouldn't have in the past have now hired directors of rugby. Schools that haven't in the past will now have nutritionists coming in, maybe not necessarily on a full-time basis, but at least on a part-time basis to help them out. And that's the kind of level that they're trying to get to now. It's almost like semi-pro. It's starting to get to just because schools realize that in order to take that next step and to separate themselves from the chasing pack, they need to have that little bit extra. Like my former school, Wallace High, who were in the semi-finals, before I left, the only sort of gym equipment or the only strength and conditioning things they had were old weights that they would bring out and put in their sports hall. Now they have a dedicated gym at the school, which they built shortly after I left. And I know from speaking to guys like Nathan Doak, who played for Wallace in the Schools Cup, and some of the guys this year, they've been saying how much that helps just by having all that stuff there. They've got all their plans laid out for them. They know exactly what they're doing when they're going in, as opposed to going into this old sports hall and really having to grind through it. It becomes a lot more enjoyable whenever you have this pristine setup. So for me, looking at Ulster schools rugby going forward, the more schools that start to get to that level, and you get just talking to some of the coaches, they really want to get their schools to that level. And there's a lot of ambitious schools outside of Belfast and outside of sort of the big 8, as they would say, who go straight into the fourth round in the Schools Cup. A lot of them really want to bridge that gap, and I think there's a lot of positive steps being done at schools such as Dromore, Ballyclare High. If you go further north, sort of Ballymena are part of the top 8, but I know they're doing a lot of good work in Coleraine Grammar as well. So a lot of work being done, and I think the more that those schools really start to push and start to break into that sort of upper echelon of Ulster schools rugby, the more those top schools will have to raise their game as well. And once that happens, you'll start to have this sort of snowball effect that'll roll through all the schools.
100%. And like you were saying there, you feel maybe the Ulster schools are quite a bit behind Leinster and all, but do you think maybe if there was let's say an All-Ireland knockout afterwards where you have the winners of each provincial maybe go into a semi-final format and then a final, I think that might help the other provinces grow a bit, your likes of Connacht and Ulster as well. Do you think that might help?
I'd love to see that. And it's something that I have asked about before. And I think that just at the moment there is a realization that there's not a lot of time just to sort of fit it in after all the competitions are done. But certainly I think it's something that would be a great aspiration. I think the schools would absolutely love if they got the chance to sort of have that All-Ireland to play for once they've won their provincial title, because I don't think it would necessarily devalue the provincial titles. I don't think if you win Ulster, but you don't win the All-Ireland, it's an unsuccessful season or anything like that. I think there is still a lot of prestige in winning the Leinster Senior Cup or the Ulster Schools Cup or the Connacht Senior Cup or Munster, So I would love to see that. And it would, as you say, it would be a great barometer of where are the Ulster schools in comparison to Leinster, or where the Connacht schools in comparison to Munster. It'll differ year on year depending on great years. Like if you take that RBAI team that had Mike Lowry and James Hume and Jude Postlethwaite and Callum Reid, all those guys in it, I think they probably would have given any school across Ireland a run for their money. So there will be peaks and troughs. It wouldn't be an exact barometer, but I do think it would be good sort of as a way to sign off the year if you had all 4 champion schools from across Ireland coming together and playing for an All-Ireland trophy. I think that would be beneficial, and I think it would be something that a lot of neutral fans would really enjoy seeing as well, just as, again, a kind of sense of who are the real talents coming through. Because outside of your own province, you can sort of be aware of maybe who's doing well, but it's only really whenever you get to see them in action that you get a real sense of which players are the ones that you think could actually make a step up here and could be in mix for potentially going forward and playing for their provinces. So even from a talent perspective and even sort of a scouting perspective, I think it'd be good if there was something added on to the end of it.
100%. I couldn't really agree more with you on that. And then finally, Adam, before we wrap things up, if I was to ask you for maybe a couple of players as your players at a tournament, who would you say off the top of your head?
Ben Mcfarland has to be up there, and not just for his kicking performance. He is the easy one to go for after what he did in the final, but I thought he was superb throughout in terms of his overall game as well as his kicking. Really talented fullback. He can step out of the backfield, and I thought he was very good. Ulster have a real knack of producing backs that are very talented, so I'll try and stay away from them. Rory Telfer was another one from Coleraine who had a really good tournament. They were knocked out quite early, but certainly if you look at their body of work throughout the year, he was extremely impressive in the centre for Coleraine. But if you look at in the pack as well, Josh Stevens had a great tournament for Methody at open side flanker. You got a lot of guys from Campbell in that pack who are going to be great. Joe Hopes at lock looks like a real athlete, really strong, powerful runner in the second row that I think complements a lot of guys well whenever you have that sort of athletic second row combined with your sort of technical second row. But you also have guys like Oliver McCauley, who had a great tournament, Flynn Longstaff, both back rowers from Campbell, who had great tournaments as well. And I think you'll probably hear a lot more about them. So quite a few guys had good tournaments. If I was to say someone who I think though had sort of the best tournament, Zach Solomon, who's the Campbell captain, another hooker off the production line in Ulster. I thought he was outstanding. Technically, he was so good at the line out, piloted a great maul in the semi-final and the final for Campbell, showed some great nous in loose play as well. So he's a guy who I would really sort of keep an eye out on. But as I say, Ulster aren't short on hookers, so it'll be interesting to watch where his career development goes.
It certainly will be. And Adam, thanks so much for joining us again today. It's a pleasure as always.
Oh, pleasure, Luke. Thank you.
And I'm afraid that is all that we have for this week here on the Rugby Show. But make sure to tune back in next Wednesday where we will have yet another stacked show. See you then.